A caterpillar spends most of its life amid the foliage, its world confined to lush green stems and the occasional leaf. It has never known anything but. It steadily makes its way through life, contracting and expanding 1 inch at a time, unaware of the miles upon miles left to explore. To this tiny traveler, everything seems colossal and all is unknown. In many ways, we are a lot like caterpillars. What binds our two species is our collective unconscious, our lack of understanding and lack of direction. Though it may not seem that way relative to a caterpillar, in the grand scheme of things, we are both minuscule in comparison to the vastness of the world, the universe we inhabit. And because of this shared diminutiveness and the unpredictability it entails, our fears, desires, strengths, and weaknesses are not also different. In fact, the stages of maturation and self-discovery the caterpillar is forced through in its metamorphosis into a butterfly is something we all undergo in our own way. We may not gain wings, but at the end of the day, the person we become will be unrecognizable from the person we were. And while we might forsake the caterpillar's existence as a silly little never-ending buffet of leaves and twigs and nothing more, so too are we often confined by boundaries of our own making. We cling to familiarity, hide behind our mother's legs on the first day of school, rewatch our favorite TV shows until our mind grows numb, and hole up in our rooms. We make our universe as small as we can. This is our corral. We feel safe in what we know. Yet, the beauty of life isn't what we don't. It's the uncertainty, the maelstrom of nothing and everything and the something in between, the next twig to reach for in our journey, which may turn out to be something more, which makes life fulfilling. Each phase of life comes with its own challenges. These can be intimidating, but they can also be rewarding. These experiences shape our understanding of ourselves and the world. It is by stepping out of our comfort zones and turning over the next leaf, even if we don't know exactly what lies beneath, that we can grow. We discover a world far greater than the one we previously knew. And there is nothing more wondrous and beautiful and utterly terrifying than that. It may seem odd to think that you have so much in common with a critter that is barely an inch long, but the answer to these lofty problems of ours really does reside in an insect. Don't get me wrong. When a caterpillar hatches, it's not exactly philosophizing its existence. It has few goals: eat, grow, and avoid getting squished. Riveting, isn't it? Yet, just as the caterpillar begins its life in an environment it does not fully understand and doesn't really need to, so do humans. From the moment we are born, we are thrust into an environment that is incomprehensible. Everything is one big question mark. And it's not until much later that we begin to make sense of it. In the early stages of life, both the human infant and the caterpillar are blissfully unaware. Infants do not understand language. They respond to the rhythm and tone of speech rather than the meaning of words. Babies do not understand time. They live in the immediate present. Past and future are concepts beyond their cognitive capabilities. They do not understand cause and effect. They may accidentally make a toy squeak, but will not comprehend that their action caused the sound. They might look into a mirror and not realize the reflection staring back is their own. In short, babies aren't the most intelligent beings. And there's nothing wrong with that. They have more important things to worry about. Babies are mostly focused on survival, getting through the first few years rather than making the most of them. And they come into the world with a set of reflexes for seeing this goal through. A baby will grab its mother's hand when in need of comfort. It will suck anything when given the chance. It will coo when happy and cry when sad. It will do all of these with no hesitation, no inward contemplation. Reflexes serve as an infant's primary means of interacting with the world. Since voluntary control over movements is limited in the early stages of life, reflexes provide automatic reactions that support essential functions. These are expressions of an inborn knowledge of what it needs to survive and grow, even if it doesn't understand why. Just as caterpillars instinctively feast on the greenery that they're born into, camouflage to dodge predators, or regurgitate toxins when threatened, humans are also an instinctive species. We go with our gut, and much of the time that means we are driven by a need for closeness and care. This is where attachment theory comes in. Attachment theory, first developed by John Bowlby and later expanded upon by Mary Ainsworth, posits that the bonds formed between children and their primary caregivers are crucial for their emotional and psychological development. Through these interactions, they learn whether the world is a safe place and what they need to survive. The caregiver's responsiveness to a child's signals of distress or need for attention form the foundation of the development of trust and the establishment of a secure base from which the child can venture forth into the world. So the early life stages of both the human infant and the caterpillar, although different in their specifics, are united by the fundamental imperative of survival. In either case, there are no weighty decisions to be made, no path to be forged. A baby, a caterpillar, their life has already been decided, and they simply exist. This is a time when their world is their caregiver, and their needs are very few. Their growth is constant but unperceived. They may not recall these early years, yet they are integral to who they will become. The next stage of life is one of assurance, of raw, mindless consumption and mimicry. Up until this point, the caterpillar has gotten by on nibbling very little. Now it is ravenous, its appetite voracious. The caterpillar will devour anything in sight, not just to live, but to thrive and grow. It will consume 200 times its birth weight and increase its body mass by 1,000 times or more within weeks. While human babies might not chug 200 gallons of milk per se, there's still something very human about this. Or maybe there's something very larval about us. Either way, humans in their early developmental years are equally avid consumers, albeit of knowledge rather than leaves. Human infants, much like caterpillars, have a very high resting metabolic rate. Adjusted for size, an infant's metabolic rate is about twice that of an adult's. This supports not just physical growth, but also rapid brain development. Within a year, the human brain reaches 60% of its adult size. By age 3, a child's brain boasts more than 1,000 trillion neural connections, with 1 billion neural connections formed every second. By age 5, the average child will know more than 10,000 words. A toddler learns more in a single year than many of us do in a decade later in life. Over the years, we are fed a constant stream of information, opinions, and beliefs from our families, schools, communities, and media. Who we are is not something to be figured out. It is something we acquire, something we are told. Our identity becomes an amalgamation of what we learn. Just as the caterpillar will store food for its adult life, we absorb and internalize the teachings and ideologies presented to us. There are still no decisions to be made, no direction to be sought, no feelings of existential dread to wrestle with. Our young minds are like sponges, soaking up information and thoughtlessly spitting it back out. This process of internalization and emulation is crucial for our social and cognitive development. Yet, it does not come without its challenges. We are impressionable. We are fed and fed and fed until we are overfed, overwhelmed, and overstimulated. We may be older at this point, but we are still children. Giddy, fat children, and we are about to explode. I know what this is like. As any other person or caterpillar I'm sure does too. I have a repulsive need to be something. But to me, something and everything are one and the same. So perhaps I want to be everything. I want a myriad of lives I know I cannot have. Ones that are simply unfeasible. When I was 7, I was going to be the queen of the world. A year later, a fairy, then a magician, and the next, a clown. I wanted to be a poet, a painter, a lawyer, and a raconteur. I wanted to be omniscient. Today, I am none of these. I still know nothing. I'm nothing but what others will me to be, and what I think I should be, and I am stuck in worlds that do not exist. I bet many of you can relate to this feeling. The feeling of having so many aspirations, but no clear direction or means to achieve them. You are stuck, paralyzed. But this paralysis isn't born out of a lack of desire, but rather an overwhelming abundance of choices. A study conducted by the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics examined career aspirations among young people. Unsurprisingly, it found that adolescents frequently change their career aspirations, with less than half remaining consistent for more than a year. But while this is normal, it is in no way good. With each passing day, the pressure mounts. Society dictates timelines for success, milestones to be achieved by certain ages. But how can one follow such a linear path when their heart yearns for more? It's simple. They can't. Like it or not, choices must be made. With each choice, a multitude of lives are left unexplored, and that's the harsh reality we must face. Because the very hungry caterpillar, who wants to be a monarch, a swallowtail, a cabbage white, who wants to be red and blue and yellow and rainbow, will wind up a moth. A drained of color moth chasing an ever out-of-reach light. She who covets everything will wind up with nothing. She who covets everything is bound, sooner or later, to fail and explode. Oh, whoops. You probably know this next stage very well, and you probably cringe at the thought of it. Middle school, puberty, those in-between years when you are treated like a kid, yet expected to behave like an adult. Yet again, you are stuck, caught between the innocence of childhood and the responsibilities of adulthood. Just like the caterpillar, who at this point is a pupa suspended under the branch of a tree, middle school sort of feels like holding on to that branch for dear life. In a way, it's still about survival, about making it through to that next day. And don't get me wrong, it can be scary to be vulnerable. With the onset of puberty, adolescents become increasingly aware of and sensitive to the social hierarchies and judgments of their peers. It's no wonder that puberty is often associated with a spike in mental illness. The rate of depression alone more than doubles to 20% during adolescence. As for the pupa in its cocoon of silk, it cannot move nor defend itself. It is at its most vulnerable, shedding its old form to make way for something entirely new. But it's not entirely alone in the struggle. The pupa is protected by its cocoon like the child is coddled by its parents. But the child cannot grasp its mother's hand whenever it pleases. It's too far apart. At this point, change, for both, is inevitable. It is inescapable. You can't outrun it, and then, boom, transformation. Only this time, you're on your own for it. You leave behind the comforts and coddling that have cradled you up until now. The butterfly has shed 3 to 4 times to accommodate its expanding body. These moments of shedding can be uncomfortable, sometimes even painful. But with each shedding comes a rebirth. A rebirth that many humans can relate to. You'll emerge from these moments of transformation with a clear sense of who you are and what you want out of life. You have finally made some decisions. You now have to reconcile with your newfound identity you've been working towards all these years, knowingly or unknowingly. You are getting closer to a more complete version of yourself. Butterflies now look entirely different from the larva, and they can do many more things. They can fly, mate, and feed on nectar, but the one thing they can't do is grow. This is where humans and butterflies diverge. While a person's physical growth is typically complete by the time they reach the early 20s, cognitive and emotional growth continues throughout life. For example, the prefrontal cortex, responsible for decision-making and social behavior, continues to develop into a person's mid-20s, and cognitive skills can be honed well into old age. So humans never stop growing from birth till death. Life is growth, and the two are inseparable. But that means to live, you have to allow yourself to grow. And to grow, you have to allow yourself to live. Allow yourself to be vulnerable, to sometimes be unaware, and proceed without direction. Because let's be honest, the relentless pursuit of achievement, coupled with a lack of direction, may spell the doom of our generation. When we become so focused on choosing the right, the safe path, we risk becoming blind to the beauty of living in the moment. As an overachiever, I understand this desire for direction and organization more than anyone. I've lived a life of planners, agendas, and post-it notes. I thought if I set up the minutiae of my life into a calendar, if I compartmentalized and color-coded every detail, any problems would be resolved, or at least managed. But I'm still so tired of unknotting knots. My feet are aching from unsteady steps. I crave footprints to a discernible finish line and a path already defined. I want something to know is destined to be mine. I want my wings. I want more. To be more, to have more, to see more, to feel more. I am too greedy, too needy, too human and zealous to be a proper lady. My dreams become desperation, become my own doom. I think dreams and ambition are both the boon and the curse of man. We yearn so badly that it destroys us. Sometimes, I think there's some veracity to the story of Sisyphus. For those unfamiliar with the tale, it's about a man doomed by the gods to push a boulder up a hill, only for it to roll back down each time he nears the top. While the legend may be nothing more than that, a legend, it definitely still holds true for us. In our own way, we push and push a rock up a hill that never seems to have its peak. Yet that's all we care about. All we focus on is the summit, pushing the rock for the sake of reaching it, all for the rock to come crashing down. We find ourselves back where we started, and yet we keep on pushing, hoping that this time will be different, and it never is. But who can blame you? After all, the end is what gives meaning to our present. It is how we are remembered. Tomorrow is the proof that we live today. As high school students, this feels painfully true. There's an overwhelming pressure to have everything figured out fast, to be the first or best. But it's okay for our paths not to be clearly delineated. Instead, try focusing on small, manageable goals. Embrace exploration and spontaneity. Strive for personal growth rather than personal achievement. Spend more time reflecting on your experiences rather than mapping them out. Accept things as they are rather than as you envisioned them. Put yourself out there, little by little, or inch by inch in caterpillar terms. Focus on being rather than acquiring. Because the true challenge is not in having more, but in appreciating what we already possess. Because the funny thing about butterflies is that they can never see their own wings. From the moment they are born to the moment they die, butterflies never truly realize their potential. But that doesn't mean they won't reach it. They might not be able to see their enchanting wings, but that does not negate the fact that they soar. There's a lesson in pain, there's beauty in oblivion, in the silence, and the nothingness, and the obscure. The butterfly does not lament its lack of a map. The uncertainty of direction is not a flaw, it is a freedom. It allows for exploration and growth and the unexpected joys that come from experiences we never even imagined. You can dream 1,000 dreams, or you can take life by the reins. Only 2% of butterfly eggs survive to become mature adults. And even then, butterflies live from 2 to 6 weeks. But with such fragile brevity comes purpose. The butterfly does not mourn the lost time. It cherishes the time left and lives it. Be like the butterfly. In its path, find your own. Indulge in the nectar of today, in the pulse of the here and the now. Lose yourself in the becoming. Spread your wings even if you don't know where they are taking you. As for my future, it still isn't clear. But if these past few years have taught me anything, it is this. I cannot write my own destiny, of which I have yet to see. I cannot claw that which I cannot even reach. I cannot make tangible the intangible or clarify the unclear. And I am worrisomely okay with that. Because I don't know what I'm looking for. But somehow, I know I'll find it. It's thrilling not to know what it is. Thank you.